Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of February's Q&A video series. Let's call it that. For anyone who didn't check out the first video, definitely go and check out the first video. There's lots of questions asked about products, the state of the industry, us and how we do things here and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, just carrying on with that. If you have got any questions for, I guess, next month's one, put them in the comment section below. I'm here with Brandon. Say hi.
Hi.
And yeah, we're going to get through some more questions. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. But before we get into that, here's a quick word from this video sponsor.
I'm never going to be an esports gamer. I never get any kills.
I wouldn't be so sure of that.
Is that Andy Raffel from eTeknix.com?
Yes, my son, it is me, Andy Raffel from eTeknix.com.
What are you doing here?
I'm here to bestow upon you a gift that will transform you into a true gamer. With a 24.5-inch Full HD screen, 240Hz refresh rate, 0.5 millisecond response time, AMD FreeSync Premium, and height adjustability, you'll be gaming in the big leagues in no time.
Thank you.
No problem, my son. Why don't you check out the link in the description below to find out more.
Okay, so first question. How much will a 4060 cost? 4060? Never heard of it. You?
It'll cost less than the 4070 Ti.
Done. So yeah, it hasn't been officially announced yet. There's nothing in terms of 4060 or nothing that we've heard sort of officially on the roadmap or anything like that. I mean, it's inevitable that it's going to come, but I think there's still going to be quite a lot of stock in the channel of 3060 and 3060 Ti, so they're going to want to clear that first.
Yeah, I got an email the other day, I don't remember who from, about 4060 laptops.
Yep.
And I don't care.
No, I think the general consensus was 4060 laptops is they're overpriced for what they are. And then you could say the same about the 4070 Ti graphics card, the 4080, the 4090. The 4060 is just going to be the same, isn't it? It should be, I don't know, 349, 399. It's probably going to be 599. Everyone's going to have massive uproar about it. Nvidia are doing this, Nvidia are doing that. AMD are going to come out with something lower end. It's not going to be as good in terms of ray tracing and things like that, but it's going to be more affordable, and it's the same thing again, isn't it?
Yeah.
It kind of gets a little bit boring to a degree. So I guess this is our way of saying, Nvidia, when you release it, do the right thing and release it for a reasonable price that people are willing to pay. And sort of, I guess, on that note, like, let us know, what would you be willing to pay for an RTX 4060? Like I say, I think 349, 399 maybe. What do you think?
That's more than reasonable, in my opinion.
Obviously, it depends on the performance level and stuff like that, but you'd like to think if we're talking the same performance increase from the 3060 up to that as we saw from like the 3080 to the 4080, if we have that same level of like performance margin increase on a lower end product, then yeah, I think 399 is more than reasonable. I'm saying 349, 399 because you're always going to get reference that say 349 and then a custom AIB card for like 399, 429, 429. There's going to be some brands, you know, Asus they're going to release like a Strix model, which just never ceases to amaze me. A 4060 Strix, you might as well just buy a 4070 reference. It's going to be almost as good, but yeah, you're paying for the Strix branding and the ROG tax and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's still a little bit too early, really, to talk about the 4060. I think 4070 is going to be there as well, but again, nothing official as of yet. But you know, time will tell and we'll see what happens. Okay, next one. I have a 1440p 165Hz monitor paired with a 3080. What would be better, setting the FPS uncapped or limiting it to say 164, 165 FPS in games like Apex, Battlefield, COD, etc., which will give me lower latency and smoother gameplay? I'm asking this question because I heard somewhere that 99%, 100% load on the GPU introduces latency, and I have no means of testing which is better. Thoughts? You play Apex.
It's got NVIDIA Reflex.
Yeah.
Just put that on.
Yeah. I think just saying what monitor you have doesn't really help. Like, has the monitor got G-Sync? Has it got FreeSync? Has it got this? Has it got that?
Already, what is its latency? You'd assume a millisecond if it's that specs.
Yeah. Like if you're talking a 1440p 165 hertz, you'd like to think they're not going to be like, oh, it's got this, it's got that, but really terrible response time.
Yeah.
So I think it's a tricky one because, we need to know a little bit more about what it is, but you'd like to think certain games, have things built into it to help you. The monitor might have certain things in there to help you as well. I wouldn't say there's like a blanket one-size-fits-all solution because the games that he was talking about, Apex, like you say, it's got reflex, right?
Yeah.
Battlefield has nothing, but Battlefield I wouldn't class as a fast-paced game that you want to... It's not like an esports title like Apex is or CSGO where you'd want to cap it. You'd just want the very highest FPS, basically.
Yeah, honestly, with Battlefield and COD was the next one.
Yeah.
With those games, I'd be more willing to have slightly lower FPS to make it look more visually impressive because I'm not playing it for any kind of competitive reason like Apex.
Yeah,
which I'm playing that to try to win.
But then on the flip side, the first thing anyone who has 2 brain cells does is goes into Call of Duty settings, scrolls right to the bottom, turns off motion blur, depth of field, stuff like that. The things that make things look more realistic because you can then see enemies better and you get in some cases, quite huge performance boosts because of that. Yeah,
I mean, if you're playing any game with those things enabled, then that's...
Yeah, motion blur's horrible.
Yeah, it makes me a little bit motion sick.
Yeah. I mean, I know people who don't play VR because of the same reason. It's very, very similar. Motion blur, it's just a bit too... It reminds me of, when you used to do the mouse trail, where you'd like move your mouse and on the screen it had like a trail behind it. Yeah.
Kind of like if you had jelly, you wobble it and it's like... Whoa.
Yeah, and then when you stop, it's still like going. Yeah. So certain games I would cap. So CSGO, CSGO I would turn down to like medium settings. I run CSGO at like 1280 by 720, I think it is.
It's like the most competitive of competitive games.
Yeah. So I literally, I'm on my 34-inch ultra wide and I run it like tiny and then I crank the settings down to medium and yeah, I'm not saying it makes me a better player. I feel like it does. I have a slight advantage on things like that. But I, am on a 165 hertz monitor, but I don't cap it either. I run at whatever the hell I want. Like, the higher the FPS, the better. And yeah, I think it's just one of them age-old things of there's always going to be an argument for so many different sides to that argument. And it's not a one side versus one side. It's like almost like an octagon.
Yeah, it's like it's a balancing act as well.
Yeah.
A lot of the time you'll find unrestricted FPS could introduce a lot more VSync issues.
Yep. Yeah.
So then VSync, limit it down, and then you have got a much smoother looking experience.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the main part of this question is all down towards like latency and things like that. What point does it start introducing latency? But that is game specific, that's monitor specific, depending on if you have, technologies like G-Sync, FreeSync. If the game supports reflex, there's just too many variables to say this is what you should do. But hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit more indication as to what kind of works and what doesn't. Okay, next one is from Quatrain. Do you think that the PC will still remain a viable gaming platform even though the costs of GPUs, CPUs and most parts keep reaching higher and higher prices? I mean, GPUs have come back down again. We published a video this month of like we found GPUs below MSRP. CPUs are at a reasonable-ish level. I think the big problem is the cost of living at the moment. Like, people aren't going out and buying PCs because they're too busy trying to heat their house.
This argument, though, is basically the console versus PC argument.
Of course it is, yeah.
And this argument annoys me to no end because everyone on the console side of it says, well, consoles are cheaper, therefore they're better. And I say, if you have a computer, it's a computer and your console.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you're paying more for more.
Yeah, a computer you can do work on, you can do other things on. It's not just gaming. I mean, I'm not saying that on consoles you can't, but consoles you're not going to be web browsing multiple tabs. You just can't do it.
You're definitely not going to be working on it.
No, I mean, you're literally talking gaming and watching entertainment-based programs and films and stuff like that, right? Whereas on a PC, you can do all of that. So I guess what we're trying to say is a PC can do everything a console can, but a console can't do everything a PC can. And then on the flip side as well, you want to buy, okay, console is cheaper. I will give them that argument. Console is cheaper. For the equivalent PC, you're talking at least double the price, maybe even like closer to triple the price. But then every game is more expensive on console than it is on PC.
And then another argument as well, when it comes to PC versus console, if you want to play your backlog of games, you're going to need more than that console.
Yes.
Good luck playing
Broken Sword 2 on the PS2.
Or even Portal,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
Portal RTX came out not that long ago.
Luckily, you're okay if you want to play Grand Theft Auto, because it is on every single console, every generation since, 2013? Whenever it came out. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Whereas, on a PC, obviously we don't condone this, but there are emulators and ROMs and things like that. You have the ability to do things, but then, games that were actually made for Windows will run on Windows. Sometimes you might have to put it in compatibility mode if we're talking really old games like the original Prince of Persia or something like that. But there are ways to do it. Someone has found a way to run this game on this type of setup. So it's not entirely impossible. But yeah, I mean, talking about how many games would you say you buy in a year?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Just as a rough kind of,
I'm part of Humble Monthly.
Okay.
Which means I'm buying roughly 120 a year, maybe.
Okay, 120 a year. And I'd probably say console price of a game compared to PC is 20 to 30 pounds more expensive. So you do the maths, over that course of a year, it's going to work out cheaper on PC.
Yeah, and the likes of Humble Bundle is a really good argument for it as well, because you get these bundles of, a lot of the time, very high-end, big-name games. They're a little bit older, but they're very big games for ridiculously small prices.
Yeah, I mean, 120 games at 20 quid a game on average, sort of, let's say at the lower end of the scale, it's like £2,400
Yeah, but I'm paying about...
that you'd pay extra in games on a console.
I'm paying about £1 per game
Yep.
with that setup.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't want a game as soon as it launches, there are, various different websites where you can go get CD keys and stuff cheap. Some of them aren't legitimate in the sense of how they get hold of them and that, but some are, GOG and things like that.
Yeah.
So there are websites where, you can get things cheaper, and overall, the longevity of something, and you can obviously upgrade a PC Master Race.
Just get a PC.
Okay, Welshie, who is the best tech reviewer you ever collaborated with, and why, in terms of working together? I haven't actually done that many collaborations with people. I think I did one with BPS Customs. I think I did one. I've done one with PC Centric, so Marcus, just because he lives 25 minutes away from me, so it's nice and easy. I've done some stuff with some streamers before. Done some stuff with end of year type. What's your favorite product this year? I think I did some stuff there with Craft Computing. There's a lot of people that I know within the industry that I talk to, who, even at the point that I'm at, that I get really good advice from. Probably one of the most prevalent there is Steve from Hardware Unboxed. I talk to him quite frequently, and he sort of says, Andy, stop doing this, start doing that, blah, blah, blah. So there's that side of it, but not actually done any work together. Maybe we need to do more collaborations in the future and stuff. But, for now, I've got Brandon, so, there's that. Okay, so we've got a question. Maybe get deeper into how effed up the gaming sector is. Not only pricing, but also the timing of games that just ask for ridiculous hardware requirements, even for full HD 60, just when the frame generators hit the market. So, I mean, Hogwarts Legacy is a prime example of that. It was almost and Cyberpunk, not finished. So there is that side of things that, developers need to do better. The problem is, back in the day, they used to make a game for console, they'd make a game for PC. Now, consoles are technically PCs, but they still have to make them slightly differently. So they're trying to make something for multiple things, but keep it the same. And it makes it difficult. And then, you have got points where a new game comes out and it runs like trash unless you have a $1,500 graphics card, like an RTX 4090. So it does make it difficult. I mean, whose problem is it? The developer is to blame.
There's a middleman that hasn't really been considered here. The testing teams work testing these games and doing bug fixes and stuff.
Yep.
A lot of their job is finding these issues, and if they're not doing their job well, you're not going to get as good of a quality game at the end of the process. Yeah. It's like games that are really, really well optimized are the kind of games that have really, really good testing teams. Yep. Like early Pokemon games, their studio for testing that stuff is so famous that they're kind of legendary. Yep. one guy there as well, like the translator, is that he's legendary because how good of a job they did.
I guess like some developers as well have been doing this so long that, you know, they've kind of got it honed in. Like Doom Eternal was perfectly optimized, and you know, an absolutely great game. It's almost like some of these developers, they've sort of lost the point of making a game. And apologies to anyone, we do have building work going on outside, so we mentioned this in the first video. We have no way around it, and they've been doing this for 3 weeks. So yeah, thank you, National Rail. But yeah, it's almost like they've lost focus of what the game is and what the game's about, and they've just tried to make it either visually look amazing, you know, so much better than their rival studios, or they've tried to add things in that kind of the people don't actually care about. Ray tracing, for instance, you know.
I care about it.
I mean, some people do, but the general consensus is people don't care about ray tracing. If I was to put a poll out now, do you care about ray tracing, yes or no? The majority would say no.
Yeah.
So, you know, like Cyberpunk, they were so focused on like, it has to look like this, it has to look like that. And performance was pretty shocking unless you had high-end gear.
It's still not great performance.
No.
The game does look visually amazing and it's fun.
But there's other games that I would argue looked better for the time. Original Far Cry. When that came out, that was like, hold the front door, shut the front door, whatever. It was amazing.
A huge showcase of the Cry engine, wasn't it?
Yeah. Metro as well was absolutely amazing. And they had nowhere near the same amount of bugs as Cyberpunk did.
Yeah.
So it's... I don't know. Yeah, I feel like developers have lost focus, and I think they are the ones to blame because they're trying to make something for next level hardware, but the next level hardware isn't quite here yet, and when it does get here, it's too expensive.
I think this is where the indie sphere is really taking off, and why everyone is kind of shunning AAA developers these days in favor of the indie developers. Because they're focused on, not on visuals, they're focused on a fun game.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that has to come first. Storyline and gameplay has to come first, and all the other kind of, you know, glitzy glammy stuff can come later. There are so many games out there like that are, I mean, just look at stats and things like that. Do you know what the most popular platform is for gaming right now? Your mobile. Mobile gaming is more popular than console, PC combined. That hasn't got the best graphics in the world.
No.
I play Lemmings and Toon Blast. I don't care about the graphics. It's all about the gameplay. So I think, fundamentally developers, especially on AAA developers and that, have just lost focus completely, and they need to go back to the drawing board to fix this and work maybe even closer with Nvidia, AMD and things like that to make it work better. So when it is released, I remember the days as well when you had like betas and then it would go gold and then then final release and stuff. You don't get that anymore. It's just like, we have to appease the shareholders, so quick, get it out as fast as possible. Yeah,
actually, that's another really big issue, isn't it? Is the people funding these things say, we're not happy that we don't have our money yet, and then when they don't get money because it's a bad quality product...
It's fine, add some microtransactions.
They go, we're mad at you because your game didn't live up to the expectations we had. It's like, well, you had those expectations from nothing.
Yeah.
And Cyberpunk is a really big example of that too. They pushed for a release date that it wasn't ready for, then got mad that it didn't perform, and then tried suing CD Projekt Red. It's like, well...
Yeah, and we're still waiting on multiplayer, and now that's meant to be a separate standalone thing as well. So, very much like how you could buy Red Dead Redemption 2 online, and then you could buy the game.
Which we fell for.
We did. Sad times. Okay, next one is PNX Tech. Do you really think we will be able to see the PCIe Gen 5 speeds compared to Gen 4? No, I don't think the average consumer is ever going to notice the difference when it comes to like gameplay. And we touched on this in the first video about PCIe Gen 5. If we had two identical systems, Gen 4, Gen 5, and we was just doing gaming, I don't think you'd notice any difference. Just like you between Gen 3 and Gen 4. There was maybe a second in load times, but you're normally like, getting your headphones ready or going and making a cup of tea or something like that you're not going to notice it anyway.
Yeah, in real world, like... situations, you're not going to notice anything like that. You're only going to really notice if you deliberately go into like Crystal Disk Mark and you go, oh, that number's so much bigger.
Yeah, synthetic benchmarks, which is kind of what it's all about. Where you go, the other side of it is productivity, where generally speaking, you want the very best equipment. So when we're editing videos, we use the latest RTX 4000 series graphics cards. We use the latest processor, as much memory as we can throw at it. And then, yeah, what else have we got that's a bottleneck? Storage, right? We need the fastest storage possible. So there's moments like that where, yes, it definitely comes into play. But when it comes to gaming, no, not at all. Even most workload related tasks, let's say the drive of reading and writing between the drive is probably the most negligible out of all of the parts. Generally speaking, memory for caching, GPU for like rendering things, CPU for calculation stuff. Storage kind of will always be the last thing that you need to worry about. If you've got a decent CPU, GPU, and memory, you can get away with having a worse SSD.
If you're focusing on productivity too, I would focus slightly less on the speed of the storage and more on the capacity of the storage, which higher capacity ones don't perform quite as well as the lower capacity ones anyway.
In some cases, purely because trying to fit, and this has been something that you've seen recently, when you look at SSDs and you've got like single-sided and double-sided and things like that, where you can now get like 2 terabyte drives, but it's single-sided because they have larger capacity NAND on there. There is obviously a difference with that in the fact that the controller only has to speak to, say, 3 bits of NAND instead of 6 smaller pieces of NAND, which does result in sort of, slightly different response times and things like that as well. But, everyone's getting better with things. The likes of Phison with their controller is just immense now. And, I think Gen 5 is definitely going to be out of reach for most people because it's going to be costly as hell, just like Gen 4 was, probably even more so because the components within it cost more money and that cost has to be passed on to someone. But, it's going to be interesting when it comes out, but we will do our own tests and, direct storage is going to probably be the only thing that I guess gives us that extra speed in games that where it will matter. But then you got to think the trade-off of I'm paying to have this functionality for what, load times? Because once you're loaded, it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, and when you're looking at the longevity of the drives, it's like, is it worth spending extra for the tiny bit of load time if it doesn't last as long?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it isn't going to last as long, it's just we don't know.
No, we'd have to look at the cycle times and things like that as to how long things are going to last. But, it's going to be interesting, especially to see how much they're going to be in comparison to Gen 4. Okay, next one is from Christopher. How do you take a holiday when having to make videos? I don't. That's kind of the problem, You look at other tech YouTubers, you've got on the higher end, you've got Linus, who... Linus could, in theory, take a holiday because he's got Anthony and he's got Alex and he's got other people who can shoot videos and stuff like that. Here, we're obviously a much smaller team and kind of me being the face of eTeknix, I can't really take a holiday. If I do take time off, we kind of work that little bit harder, plan and make stuff before I need to go somewhere, which generally might be a trip for like 2 days or something like that, like a business trip. We end up filming videos. Brandon does a lot more testing and things like that. And we sort of plan that, right, we build up a bit of a backlog that covers while I'm away. And then when I come back, it seems seamless, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I guess, the idea behind that. But I am looking at taking some holiday this year. So we'll see how that goes, I guess. For the other guys, with Brandon, because he does a lot of the testing, he could take a holiday and I could take over for that. Deck, again, because he's our sort of sole editor. I could do some of the editing if he wasn't here, but we would generally, know when he's going to go on holiday. So again, we can plan around, make sure that videos are done before that. Sometimes it might be, staying a little bit later on days to sort of cover it and things like that. But that's kind of the general gist of it. Okay, next one is from KJ. What are some of your guilty pleasure games? I don't play that many games. That's the funny thing. Like, everyone thinks I play tons and tons of games. I mean, for me, we have our bi-weekly game night. So CSGO, GTA, which is normally GTA Racing, where we do stupid stunt races. Other than that, like web-based games that we play on game night. Phasmophobia, I used to play a lot. I played GeoGuessr, which is just one of them stupid, interesting kind of games. Used to play Fall Guys, but sort of gave up on that. It was a bit boring. What about you?
I'm constantly playing loads of games.
What's the guilty pleasure like,
I don't...
Is it Orc Massage?
It's not Orc Massage.
Still don't understand that game.
I don't know that I'd say I have a guilty pleasure game, because if I enjoy the game, I should be proud of the fact that I enjoy that game, even if it's not for everyone else.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's a tough question. I suppose the one that would be the closest to that would be Generation Zero.
Okay.
It's just not popular. Not many people play it. People complain about it for however many reasons. it's not very big, but I really like it, and the developers clearly love the game that they have developed because they continue to add content and updates to make it as good as possible, even years after its initial release. That's the kind of thing I'm into.
Yeah. See, I do like sometimes going back and playing like older games and stuff as well. So I was talking about it the other day, like Day of the Tentacle and stuff like that. Like I realised I could pick it up for like next to nothing, and I was like, oh, I want to play that just to kind of relive my youth. And that was a really stupid but great game. I could quite happily, I think lots of older games, I could quite easily pick up Seventh Guest, 11th Hour, and the newest one, which I can't remember the name of, and play them again, like logic-based games and things. But there's nothing where I'm like, oh, I'll play this and like, oh, I hope no one sees me kind of thing, which I guess is what the point of the question was of, guilty pleasure. I think I could quite happily play Pokemon Yellow again.
I mean, that's just a good game, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we're talking older games...
Yeah, but I played that when I was like 10.
So, if we're talking older games, there's definitely 2 games that come to mind immediately that is like, actually, I'm ashamed that I like playing those.
Okay.
One is Sonic Unleashed. Game sucks. I just like it.
Okay.
The other one is Sonic 06.
Right.
That game,
played that.
famously awful. But if you've got a close friend and you play that multiplayer, it is hilarious.
Okay. There you go. I might have to look into them ones. Okay, next one is from Daniel. Is there any point in upgrading motherboards, e.g. from a B350 to B550? Will I get any gaming benefits? I mean, obviously, you've got to be careful when you're upgrading from an older motherboard to a newer one, making sure that it supports your CPU, because generally speaking, the BIOS chip only has a limited amount of data. And this was a big thing between... Was it B450 to B550 when they said that they weren't going to support older CPUs because they needed the space on the BIOS chip to support the newer CPUs. But then I think like ASRock came along and said, nope, we found a way, we can do it, blah, blah, blah. And they ended up supporting everything from like Ryzen 2nd gen up to Ryzen 5000 series. So it was a really like heated thing like a year and a half ago. In terms of actual performance, if you're using the same parts and you're upgrading motherboard chipset to chipset, you might notice a small performance increase because of the way that, it depends if the memory controller was on like the chipset compared to the processor, if it can now talk to the memory quicker, or, the chipset does make a difference in terms of gaming benefits, but going from like current generation to current generation, no, there's like nothing, like 2%, something like that, give or take either way. In terms of features, I mean, that's huge, going from like B350 to B550, right?
Yeah, but then the hardware you're pairing with that upgrade is going to make a difference too.
Yeah.
If the hardware you're pairing with it can't take advantage of those extra features, then you're not going to notice that difference.
No, I'd say like if you're using a PC that's, I don't know, let's say 4 years old and you want to upgrade, I would look at sort of what your budget allows and then say, okay, I can afford to upgrade my processor, I can afford to do this, but I don't actually need to change my motherboard. And I'd do all of that other stuff first and then do the motherboard as like the last thing that you upgrade. Unless obviously you need the features, like you need faster USBs and more of them, and you might need Thunderbolt, or you might need 10 GBE or something. There's various other reasons, but based on just performance, no, you're not really like going to see this crazy unlocked performance anywhere, because motherboards don't give performance. They're a facilitator for processors and graphics cards and memory and things like that. But it's not to say that the chipset doesn't make a difference in how they actually talk to each other, depending on what chipset you're moving to and what you've moved from and things like that. Okay, next one. What is the most exciting piece of tech you have worked with? Wow. Mine's a tough one because I've been doing this so long.
Yeah.
I really don't know. What's the most exciting? I'm looking around the room like, what is the most exciting tech I've worked with? I don't know. You've been here a year, so you've got less. What would you say?
DLSS 3, because though it works like magic. that's as simple as it can get. It's like, wait, that it doesn't make a difference to how it looks, and it gives me how many extra frames? That's amazing. Yeah, true. Just that.
Compared to like DLSS 2, yes, which a lot of people argued, like in certain games it made it look grainy and things like that. DLSS 3 is magic. It really is. It'd be interesting to see what AMD do with that to be a competitor to it. But I would agree with you there, DLSS 3. I'm trying to think of sort of other things. Cases like, when you get, I guess, new cases in that kind of break the mold a little bit. The fractal torrent, when I first saw that, I was like, this is just beautiful to look at, and things like that. Beyond that, no one's trying to reinvent the wheel to a certain degree. Like, a case at the end of the day is a rectangular box. It might be squashed, or it might be this, or it might be that. It is what it is. Graphics cards, yes, they are better every single generation. Again, it's kind of what you expect. Whereas, DLSS 3 was like, oh, this is something new. Omniverse and stuff like that as well is pretty cool.
Oh, the NVIDIA Omniverse.
Yeah. So like, people now adding ray tracing to games and stuff as well, like we saw with Portal RTX. The fact that you can take an old game and add ray tracing to it now through a lot of modding and a lot of work and stuff like that. But, it's pretty cool to sort of, kind of put life back into something again that, was dead and gone and things like that.
Yeah, and I noticed that kind of thing when I upgraded my monitor to a higher refresh rate, higher resolution. It does something like that, breathes life back into older titles.
Yeah.
And with NVIDIA's, I can't even remember what they're calling it, the RTX thing that you mentioned. I can't remember what they're calling it. That's gonna bug us.
Yeah, that is gonna bug us. We've figured that out and overlay something.
But that, you can see what it's called here. Oh.
The power of movie magic. Yep.
That is going to breathe a lot of life into older games.
Yep.
Morrowind is currently one of the ones that they're looking at, I believe. And that looks incredible. It's people who haven't played that game are going to play it on newer stuff and go, oh, this is great.
Yep.
Experience older games like they're new. And people who like that game are going to go back into it and experience it like it's a new thing.
Yeah, definitely. So, that's only going to get better as time goes on. So, it's going to be interesting to see what games are next and stuff like that. Half-Life 1, there is a mod for that now with ray tracing, so don't know what the performance level is going to be like. If it's anything like Portal RTX, it might not be great, but that's done in a slightly different way. That's more like a mod and you have to edit files and things like that, so not like the official NVIDIA way. But
is it more like a reshade?
I don't know. I'd have to look into it a little bit more. I mean, you literally download the files from GitHub and then you have to go into Steam and you have to edit config files and whatnot, so a little bit different. Not something I've really got much experience in, but worth checking out. If you like the original Half-Life, then definitely go and check that one out. Okay, so last question. Can you do a video on building a budget PC under $600 US? We don't really, we used to do builds around budgets and stuff like that, but the problem is when you brand it as $600 build and stuff like that, people are like, oh, I'm in the UK, why have you done this in dollars? Or, I'm in Germany, why have you done this in dollars, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, $600 is tough these days as well.
Yeah, you're not going to get anything new.
No, there are, I guess, options for used and stuff. Like we did a used build head-to-head thing with PC Centric where I think we had £1,000 budget. Maybe we might try and do another one. I had to go and buy used parts and stuff. Maybe we'll do another one based around $600. We'll see if, a brand wants to kind of help, make it happen and stuff. And we can look to do something based around that in the future. But it's still a tough time, I think, at the moment with the cost of things. They are coming down. GPUs are now, some of them, below MSRP. CPUs are still okay. Motherboards are more expensive because they cost more to manufacture, the cost of living, this, that, and the other. So it does make that type of content a lot harder. That's why we're focusing more now on testing and things like that instead, because we don't have to worry about the cost of things. We can just say this is how this performs in so many different titles and go from there, which seems to be working. So, that I guess is going to wrap up part 2. We are going to have a part 3 because we had a lot of questions, so we will have a part 3. Like I say, if you haven't watched part 1 and you got all this way, go and watch that one as well. And if you like this video, then a like and a sub to the channel would be amazing. And if you love what we do, you can always support us over on Patreon, where you get a ton of exclusive benefits like behind the scenes content. You get to talk to us on a special super secret area on Discord, bi-weekly game nights, and so much more. And you also get access to a lot of the testing data that Brandon does and stuff like that. So definitely worth checking out. And it's very much appreciated. I guess we'll see you in part 3, hopefully, and we'll go from there. See you in the next one. See you later, guys.